construction of a telescope larger than the footprint of all the others combined would not be significant in this context because the existing impact caused by its own management with DLNR oversight was negligent is patently self-serving. It's unbelievable. Anyway, the destruction of habitat continues with no restoration. Since the university built its first telescope on Mauna Kea, 92 acres of wekyu bug habitat in the summit area have been destroyed by telescope development. This is their own document. But no habitat restoration has been initiated, nor is restoration a condition of this current proposal. In spite of the Master Plan 2000 EIS statements that no habitat disturbance would be proposed, no new habitat disturbance would be proposed, the university's TMT EIS states that the project would disturb or destroy an additional 5.6 acres of habitat. The mitigation efforts recommended by experts hired by OMKM to address the habitat destruction are for the most part absent from the mitigation proposed by the TMT CMP. And you can read them all in the draft EIS. They were not incorporated into the final, and they were not incorporated into the CMP for the TMT. So you have to wonder, why was it so inconvenient that they listened to their own experts? Next, there's no invasive species management plan. During the 12 years since OMKM was established, several invasive species of both plants and animals have been introduced. In spite of good intentions, monitoring for invasive species has been haphazard, and the control hasn't even been considered or initiated. The CMP calls for the development of an invasive species rapid response plan in conjunction with an invasive species monitoring plan for specific species considered the highest risks. But even these plans remain on the drawing board. Just as invasive species control and eradication permits for the Science Reserve are not yet in place 12 years later, nor are they in place for the TMT. During the decade of waiting for a plan, several new invasive and predatory insects have established a presence in the summit area. But during the contested case, OMKM Interim Director Nagata admitted that OMKM had no natural resources management staff. She said that funds for this purpose were not provided by the state legislature. Dependence on funds to be provided by our legislature in this cash-strapped economy demonstrates the failure of DLNR to follow the law requiring fair market rent for the use of our land. These funds should be used in part for appropriate management. Next is the inadequate hazardous waste plan, so our aquifers at risk. Under current management, accidental spills or hazardous materials and sewage continue to occur. In spite of good intentions, the materials continue to seep into the substrate and the aquifer. The applicant anticipates no accidents will befall the TMT and therefore assumes that protective measures in place ensure there will be no significant impact. These protective measures outlined in the EIS actually don't currently exist, nor do they exist in the Science Reserve as a whole. The CMP calls for guidelines and protocols for management of spills and of hazardous waste, including mirror washing fluids, wastewater, and fuel accidents. But testimony from Director Nagata indicated that accidental releases within facilities are managed by each observatory's individual protocols. Outside the facilities, the leaks from vehicles might be handled by rangers overseen by the Mauna Kea Support Services, but no plan was identified for a larger spill, such as a truck carrying barrels of fuel. In its recommendations to the board, DLNR staff noted a recent experience with a toxic material spill in May 2009, when a hydraulic line broke, releasing 7 to 12 gallons of fluid onto a concrete floor, leaking through a 6-inch drain pipe into the ground. When DLNR claimed the event was handled perfectly, it begs the question, why, after numerous incidents of spills have entered the ground through unsealed pipes in the past, was this drain pipe sealed only after the spill? Sealing the drain after the spill is akin to closing the barn door after the horses left. With appropriate management, drains leading to the ground would have been closed years ago. The The university, and next is decommissioning. The university claims there will be fewer telescopes when the lease expires, but planners and the public are left in the dark about the details. The CMP decommissioning plan leaves specifics regarding the extent of site restoration undefined. As a result, the costs and risks associated with decommissioning are difficult to gauge. The DLNR's 1977 Mauna Kea management plan required that full funding be set aside for both construction and decommissioning of permitted telescopes, but no such requirements were put in place for the TMT. We learned this at the hearing, that funding is in place only through 2012, and that amount to be set aside for decommissioning is yet to be determined. Finally, the recreational resources are impacted by cumulative development. Okay, thanks. I'm almost done. The expanded industrial development of telescope facilities, roads, visitor amenities, and commercial tourism adds a jarring element of distraction to the wilderness. The northern plateau of Mauna Kea is not entirely pristine, but the vast landscape, the geologic terrain, the circle of shrines, and the silent interaction of light and shadow, the interplay of mist and snow on the plateau, are still a conservation resource treasured by the world. The loss of this resource would be irrevocable and is counter to the laws that protect this district. While TMT project claims it will make optimum use of the environmental factors associated with Mauna Kea, such as altitude and atmospheric clarity and distance from light sources, unfortunately the natural resources on the Earth's surface are placed at risk. The mitigation proposed does not address the impact of the TMT. The fourth criterion prohibits land uses that cause substantial adverse impact. Because the BLNR and the university have failed to address or mitigate the existing substantial impact on the mountain's resource, it's improper to consider any new projects that would contribute more impact in any way. The additive effect of additional development on the significant cumulative impact is not mitigated by illuminizing the dome, adding cultural furnishings to the inside of the building, or camouflage paint on the pull boxes, nor is off-site remediation. Funding of scholarships, while laudable, is not mitigation for resource destruction. It's important to note that the applicant has the burden of proving that mitigation measures offered would actually reduce the significant impact of the TMT project proposal to a less than significant level. The university's mitigation measures fail to do this. The TMT FEIS concedes that cumulative past, present, and reasonably foreseeable development activities are already significant, contribute a significant, substantial, and adverse impact, but the TMT would contribute to the existing safe impact, and there are no exceptions to the fourth criterion. The fourth criterion says that the level that this must not take place. The threshold of significance has already been surpassed on Mauna Kea. The successive recommendations by DLNR staff and successive approvals by DLNR under deceptive assurances by the university that they can be good managers have led to this sad state. The TMT project would contribute to that existing impact, and it can't be granted a construction permit. Conservation districts were formed for the purpose of conserving, protecting, and preserving the important natural resources of the state to promote long-term sustainability. While purporting to do this through appropriate management, the record established through this hearing demonstrates that management appropriate for this purpose is not in place. As board members, it's your duty and your responsibility to protect the people's resources for the future. The 8 criteria for permits in the Conservation District are clear, and all of them must be addressed. The proposal fails in this regard. Please exercise your duty and deny this permit. I will tell you though, when you asked that question, it occurred to me that when the additional hotel was built on Hapuna Beach, and the place that I always took my children to go was overlaid by a very large hotel that dominated the landscape that was once a fairly beautiful place at Hakuna. I don't go there anymore. I've never gone there again. So, yes, I would go to Mauna Kea, but it would be heartbreaking.